What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And together, we are speaking the language of scary mance. No, it's bromance.
It's bromance.
It's bromance, but today it's going to be my job to scare Shawn, and it's going to be Shawn's job to scare me.
Yeah.
So he's got to send me, he's got to tell me creepy story, and I'm going to tell him a creepy story, and we're going to share these creepy stories together. And if you are listening and you accidentally wet yourself, it's
You're
okay.
welcome.
No one knows except us. We know.
Yep.
Because we're watching.
So, Richard, it's that time of year.
All five of you were watching.
It's October, Richard. It's the time of spookiness. And like hot right now in podcasts is true crime stories, right?
Oh, my God. Are you... for the record, though, are we not over the true crime genre?
I was
over it when it started.
Serial was kind of like, all right. But after that, I'm like, nope, done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm into? Motivational podcast.
Yeah.
But Richard, so
there aren't that many of those, so I think that's,
they're hard to
quite
find. Yeah, if you type in motivational, there's only like 3 that come up.
Yeah.
No,
I think
Richard,
that's an untapped market.
What with the true crime podcast, what they do is they have like one story that they stretch over like 12 episodes. And, it's like, and it cuts off. It's like, well, tune in next week or subscribe for our super special secret episode. Not us. Richard.
Oh, get on our Patreon and we'll actually tell you who did it.
Yeah. We will give you basically the quick highlights where you're like, well, that sounds creepy. I should investigate that. And you're not going to, because I never do. Because that's what happens. You're like, well, that seems interesting. I should investigate.
Well, because then, like, number one, like, you destroy your search history, and number two, like, you're going to be sitting in a room and somebody's going to come up behind you and be like, why are you what is that picture?
Yeah.
Why are you reading that? What is the matter with you? And then, you know what, Shawn? Take your kids away.
Yeah, they do. Yep. It's like how to dispose of body. And guess what? Your wife leaves you, your kids are gone, and it's just because you wanted to look some stuff up on the internet.
Why didn't my pipe bomb work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one gets you every time.
Yeah. If I had a nickel.
But it's tough. I took and with these stories too, like creepy true crime stories, it always gets in like real icky places. So I'm going to try to avoid a lot of those. I think you did as well.
I tried. I mean, I did. I'm not going to lie. I skimmed pretty hard, but I think I came up all right. And also mine have a lovely theme, which I'll go into later.
Ooh.
But please, why don't you kick us off?
All right. So this first one, my wife actually told me about this, and I thought we might do a full episode on it. But it's one of those like, too, it's like, do you really want to do a full episode on like family killers? Like it doesn't, like there's not much funny that you can get from that, all right?
No.
Like you don't leave The Hills Have Eyes thinking like, ha, that whole trailer scene was really funny, wasn't it? Because it's not funny.
Yeah. You're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you're like, oh, that Leatherface.
You can't choose your family, can you? But Richard, this tale, it takes place pretty close to my backyard. It takes place in Potsy, Missouri.
Oh.
So this is
you wanted to say Missouri, didn't you? You were that close. I saw it.
Missouri?
You pulled back at the end and you were like, Missouri.
This is one Ray and Faye Copeland. So Ray and Faye became, at the ages of 69 and 76, the oldest couple ever sentenced to death in the United States.
Wow.
They were convicted, Richard, of killing 5 drifters at their farm in Mooresville, Missouri.
Ooh.
So the tale of this, Richard, so they started out in Oakland, they moved here to Missouri, and what they would do, because this is kind of like during the, let's see when some of their victims kind of happened. It was kind of like the mid-'80s, like, it was still kind of traveling, it was really in the heyday of serial killers.
Before the advent of cell phones. And GPS, where it's hard to get caught in the middle of nowhere with like no means of assistance. Although that being said, a few weeks ago, I drove cross country. I drove from where I'm at, drove all the way to California, and I was driving through I was driving through Colorado. I was driving through Colorado, and I was in a Prius. Now, like, gas mileage on a Prius is fucking phenomenal, right? And I'm driving through, and I'm about ready to cross into Utah. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going like, oh, should I fill up now? I'm like, no, because like I'm about ready to cross the state line. And like I still have a decent amount left. Plus, it's a Prius. Like this thing can go forever. Shawn, I crossed the state line into Utah, and as soon as I did, it said next gas station, like 55 miles.
Okay.
And I was like, holy shit. And I had already gone, like the last gas station was like 20 miles ago.
Okay, so you're kind of in no man's land.
I was. And I got the low fuel alert when I had like 20 miles to go.
Ooh,
and I was like,
safe there. I think you have about a gallon left when that comes on.
That's what I kind of thought. And I was sitting there and I was like, holy shit. And I'm driving through the desert, and I'm sitting there, I'm going, you know what? Like, this is how horror movies start.
Yeah.
That's exactly how they start. Cause I'm in Utah. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I mean, absolutely nowhere. I look to my left. I look to my right. There is no sign of civilization at all. At all.
You know, when I do my research for where to hide a dead body, do you know what like the number 2 thing is?
What?
The desert.
Yeah. I'm driving and I see all these exits for towns and they say no services. Ooh. And I'm like, who lives in these towns?
That's a good point. Like no services, but lots of graves unmarked.
Oh, it got kind of like I was kind of touch and go there for a second. Obviously, I did get to the gas station and got gas in the car and didn't, end up stranded or murdered.
How low do you think you were? Like, how many miles did you have left?
I think I probably had like, I don't know. It was close. Like low fuel. Like I said, that low fuel thing came on when I was like, I had like 24 miles before the next station.
That's scary.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, Richard, I'm like, thank God I'm in this car and not like any other car. Otherwise, I'd be fucked.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you got more distance on that. Well, I mean, Richard, that's your tale kind of ties into this, because if you were going through Missouri in the mid 80s and your car broke down and you just decided to become a drifter, one Ray Copeland, he had issues with money. Again, this is kind of the 80s where, even if you had issues with money, it seems like you could get around it by having somebody else buy things for you, right? So Ray was known for fraud, and so to get around his problem so he could buy cattle for his farm in Missouri, he would pick up drifters and hobos with promises of money and fame and all kinds of stuff. Not really fame, but definitely money.
Come on, you want to be a star, don't you?
I just want some food. So he would take them back. He'd set them up in his house. He'd go out. They'd finally get some money. And, he worked this scam for a little bit. But what happened, Richard, when people were like, hey, so, that money you promised me, that, Richard, is when Ray and his wife would strike and would kill whoever they were basically working with at this time. So these hobos and drifters, they would kill.
So they would pick them up like as farmhands?
Kind of, yeah. You'd just be driving along, you find a hobo in town, or you find a drifter. Yeah. And you're like, hey, you want a job and some money, some food?
Yeah.
And bring him in. It's like, well, what do I got to do? It's like, well, you just got to take this money and buy some cows. Oh, sweet. And then maybe comes back, does a little work. It's like, yeah, so what about that money? And then
so they'd use like his name. They'd use his name to get like a loan or something like that.
I think so, or at least they'd have the money somehow. It seems like you just couldn't really like sell or buy. I'm guessing a lot of like the places where you would buy and sell cattle, they're like, that Ray Copeland, he's one shifty mofo.
Yeah. Oh, so he would have like the other person do it.
Yeah. He'd have the drifter he picked up by it.
Got it. Gotcha.
So he was sent to jail a couple times for different things around this time, but he had a previous employee, Jack McCormick, that called the Crime Stopper hotline in August 1989 to tell them about Copeland. So apparently he was a worker that Copeland didn't murder. But McCormick claimed that he had seen human bones on the farm while he was employed there, and also claimed that Ray had tried to kill him.
Oh, shit.
So he got away. And that seems like that's a lot of tales of these serial killers. It's either they screw up, or they come back later in life and try to do it, or somebody escapes.
What'd they do? How'd they do it?
Well, apparently the way he did it, so police were skeptical when they heard about this, but in October of 1989, they visited Copeland Farm armed with warrants and a dozen officers and a team of bloodhounds. Initially, they didn't find anything, but further searching they found the bodies of 3 young men in a barn. As they continued, they found more bodies, all killed with the same weapon, a .22 caliber Marlin rifle.
Oh, so he shot him.
Yeah, so it became clear that he was killing his employees because of money, but Faye's actions were initially questioned. That's his wife. When she went to trial in November of 1990, her defense mounted on a picture of her as a dutiful wife and mother who had endured beatings and general ill treatment from her husband. So they're kind of playing like this whole, like, who
is also apparently half deaf. I didn't hear any gunshots.
Yeah. However, the jury convicted her of 4 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter, and she was given 4 death sentences for the murders and life without parole. So she lost the trial.
Damn.
This is the creepy part, Richard. So in March of 1991, Ray went on trial and was convicted of 5 counts of murder and sentenced to death. Upon hearing that his wife had been sentenced to death by lethal injection, he showed no emotion and replied, "Well, those things happen to some, you know." However, neither execution would take place. So Ray died of natural causes on October 19th of 93, and his wife Faye was given basically a medical parole, and she was allowed to live in a nursing home in her hometown in Chillicothe, Missouri, until she died of natural causes at the age of 82.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. So this was fictionalized in a comic book called Family Bones, written by her nephew, Shawn Granger. The play Temporary Help was written as well. This was also in a TV series of Forensic Science, Wicked Attention, and The New Detectives. And the Copeland story was also documented on episode 66 of a podcast, a true crime podcast.
Oh, of course it was.
But basically, you just have and they say, like, they don't know the number of victims. It says 5 to 12. But
oh, shit. Originally, you just said 5. They're saying as many as 12?
Yeah, they know they have 5 known victims, but they think 5 to 12. So he was convicted of 5 of them. She was convicted of 4, but they think there's probably more.
So they were convicted like of separate killings.
Yeah. Well, I think they combined them somehow because he had 5 and she had 4. But what they have listed is just the known victims are just 5.
Oh.
And they all
did they were they in it? Did they say they were innocent the whole time?
The wife seemed to be, although she was still convicted. I think with him, he just kind of was like, yeah, I guess that's just how it works.
Yeah.
Because
he's like, you caught me.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point, he was old too. Like, he died in 93 at the age of 82.
Yeah, they caught him.
So he was 78, but still pretty old.
So they caught him in 89. So that means he had 4 years. By the time like the trial and everything was over, he probably didn't go to prison until 90. So he was in jail for 3. He was in jail for like roughly 3 years.
And he was probably so old it didn't really matter. He was probably in like an isolated area anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, it's like in my backyard. It's definitely one of those tales of like, well, I don't want to pay for help, so I'm just going to murder my hobos and drifters.
So going back to the story of me driving cross country, like I'm sitting there and I actually had the thought, I'm like, this is how a fucking scary movie starts. But at the same time, I was like, I've got, my phone on me. I've got, like the GPS is still working on the phone. But okay, at the same time, like I'm still in the middle of absolutely nowhere. So let's say hypothetically that the car does break down.
All right. Yeah. You run out of gas. You get over to the side. You flip on the blinkers.
Right. Okay. And the next gas station isn't maybe for like another 10 miles. So I get out and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll walk and get gas and come back.
Oh, you start walking. Well, you have to buy a gas tank when you get there, a gas can. But Ray Copeland stops by, and you're like, oh, hey, mister. He's like, hey, did you run out of gas? Like, yeah. Can I get a ride to the gas station up there? He's like, gas station's closed. You don't know. You're going to believe him. He's a local.
Yeah.
He's like, but I got gas back at my farm if you want to work a little bit to get it.
Yeah. You're like, I got gas at my farm. And you're like, sweet. All right. That sounds all right.
Do I need to like collect eggs or milk the cow or fuck your wife? What?
And he's like, no, sign these. And then you're like, no, sign these loan papers. And you're like, what? I don't need to sign loan papers. What's your name again? Richard? No, your full name. I don't know if I want to tell you that. Don't you have your wallet on you? Oh, shit. And then, boom, I get shot in the face.
Yep.
And then they get in the car and they drive and they find my Prius. Yeah. And then they shoot my wife in the face.
Well, he gets in. He's like, Prius. Could have called that one. Hey! From the grave. I say hey. Then there's your wife saying, if you were more manly, Richard.
Yeah. You could have fought off this 78-year-old man and his fucking geriatric wife.
I was raised better than that, Amanda. I respect the elderly.
I was told not to strike an elder. He's gonna shoot you in the face. Well, when in Rome, that doesn't apply.
Amanda, different times. That doesn't apply either.
So I guess my point is that even though we live in the era of modern convenience and we have things like cell phones and, GPS, and I have a debit card in my wallet that, hey, I'll be fine. It'll all be all right. There's a chance, Shawn, it might not be all right. Because breaking down in the middle of the desert is still breaking down in the middle of the desert.
Yeah. Was it at night too, or was it?
No, it was during the day.
Okay. I would feel more comfortable then. When we traveled at night, when that gas tank got just a little bit below half, gas station, I was stopping. Because that's one thing I don't want to happen. One, it's dangerous because of other cars, driving at night.
Right.
But two, it is the fact that, that's where, farmers are looking for hobos and drifters to bring them on their farms.
And then shoot them in the face.
Yeah.
And then you're victim number 13, Shawn.
That's right. I don't want to be victim 13. That's a bad number.
So the lesson learned, the ultimate lesson learned is always keep your gas tank half full.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these guys didn't have cars, but if they did.
Maybe they did, and they let the gas tank go below half full, and they had to leave it.
Like, hey, are you a hobo or a drifter? No.
Well, I wasn't, but I guess I am now. So always keep gas in your tank.
Yep, always keep it above half full.
Otherwise, you end up getting shot in the face on a farm.
Yeah. Oh, but gas stations too are creepy at night. If you get to some of those 2 or 3 in the morning, you just hurry, get in and go. I feel like that's a place where if vampires or werewolves are real, that's where they would hunt. Because you're driving across country, and they come up, look at your license plate, like, oh, you're a long way from home, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, mister. We're on a road trip. Shawn, shut up.
Do you ever see Dusk Till Dawn? Because, that's basically what it was.
That's true.
It was, they stopped and they're like, hey, let's just stop here because, hey, it's around and, hey, titties.
Yeah, titties, beer, and I think they had food.
I don't remember if they had food. They did have food. Man was on the menu.
But Richard, that's my first creepy true crime tale for the evening. What do you have for your first?
So for my first story, the running theme, which actually you ended up falling into as well, the running theme is I made sure to pick true crime killer stories that were near where you lived.
Where I live?
Yeah, where you live. To make you ever more fearful to go outside.
Nice. So it's not just where we live in the Midwest. You're no, your specific street. 3 houses up, there's a killer. What's his name? Bob. Bob lives there. Well, it's still Bob. Go say hi.
Don't knock.
Knock on the back door.
No, ironically, this first person's name is Bob.
Oh, damn it.
It's like you called it. You're like, I don't know. I always suspected it was Bob.
He was shifty. He always comes up to me. He's like, hey, smell this. I'm like, what is it?
Smells like chloroform to me. His name was Bob Berdella, and he lived in Kansas City.
Okay, that's a little ways away.
A little ways away, but not too far.
No, close enough.
Yeah. So Bob was a former art student and former chef, and he lived near Hyde Park in Midtown, and he ran a curio shop called Bob's Bizarre Bazaar.
Okay.
So,
how bizarre? How bizarre?
Bob's Bizarre Bazaar. Oh, God damn it. So Bob's Bizarre Bazaar was on Westport Road. He got along nicely with his neighbors, and he participated in his neighborhood watch group.
Like you do.
Right? But he also killed at least 6 people.
At least, I always feel weird too when you see these stories where it's like, well, we know he killed at least 6 people. We're like, well, how many did he actually kill?
He injected caulk into their ears to deafen them.
Oh, that just seems painful.
Yeah. He also killed at least 6 people after torturing them for days or weeks. He injected caulk into their ears to deafen them. He administered electric shocks to sensitive body parts and kept copious notes of his captives' reactions and took photographs.
So he's like a mad scientist.
At some point before the killings, he began seeing male prostitutes. He offered some a place to stay. At first, his motive seemed to help them straighten out their lives. So he's like, hey, come inside and get you some food. Like, you don't want to do this forever, do you?
Yeah, he's like, hey, let me put some caulk in your ear. It's like, well, that's kind of a weird suggestion, but sure.
I know you're just trying to get through college and everything. In 1984, he struck up a friendship with Jerry Howell. That summer, he drugged Howell, bound him to a bed, and asphyxiated him. He cut apart Howell's body, dumped it in a plastic bag, and placed it outside for a garbage crew to pick up. How many bodies do you think are at a landfill?
Odd story. So pretty close to me, a guy actually confessed to dumping a body, his wife's body, basically
in the landfill.
Yeah. And so they actually went through to try and find it, and they did.
Wow.
And this was like 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe not quite. It was a couple years back when he did it, and they ended up finding it. So probably a fair amount.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it happens more often than you think it does.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say more than like 2 is probably more than what I would think. So now whenever you go by a dump, you're going to be like, oh, lots of dead bodies.
Yeah, I bet there's dead bodies in there. It's kind of like when you're driving down the highway and you're like, that's a good place to hide a body.
Or when you drive by a trunk and you see it open, there's somebody in there. You're like, oh, dead body.
Yep. Yeah. And then Sean's always like, why do you keep saying that out loud when we're in the car?
Yeah. You're like my wife. Like I'm laying there about to fall asleep,
out.
And she starts telling me all the tales of stuff that happens. I'm like, I'm trying to sleep right now. Why are you telling me about all this crazy crap that's happening?
Over the next 4 years, he repeated the pattern. He lured each victim into his house, then drug, abused, killed, and disposed of them. He kidnapped Robert Shelton, the first victim he blinded with drain cleaner in the spring of 1985. He buried his head in his backyard. Buried the head in the backyard.
And so I read this book called Native Son. It was written in like the 30s. And it goes into a pretty graphic detail of a guy cutting up a body. And in it, he talks about like how it's not very easy to cut up a body. Like to cut off a head takes a little bit of effort.
I would think it would, because you got all that muscle and, there's bone in there. And
the spine. I mean, the spine's pretty thick.
Yeah.
And the sounds it would make, like if that doesn't make your stomach turn.
Oof. That summer, so this is the summer of 85, he killed Mark Wallace, and that fall it was James Ferris. He picked up Todd Stoops, a 23-year-old male prostitute, in 1986 and tortured him for weeks until Stoops died of blood loss. In summer of 87, he tortured Larry Pearson for 6 weeks.
Good Lord.
He suffocated him with a plastic bag, then disposed of the body and buried his head in the yard. In doing so, when he buried the one head, he found the other head and then displayed.
Oh, that's where that was.
And then displayed the skull in his home. That's where I left it.
That's horrible. You're a horrible person.
Oh, shit.
The pattern. So the creep. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The pattern ended with Chris Bryson, 22, a male prostitute whom Bordella took into his house on March 29th of 1988. Go ahead. What you were going to say?
I was just going to say that. So it's interesting to think about, like the story I told, the story you told. A lot of tales of serial killers and stuff seem to take place like in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
You don't really, in the early 90s to an extent, but you don't really hear about it much now, which is very unsettling to me because you know that it's probably going on.
Yes.
There just isn't as much glorification to it.
Yeah, but I would probably also submit that, like, if we didn't have the internet, then we would have never heard of these either.
Well, some of them, but I mean, there are some like the Bundys. Like, I mean, you could list off 10 serial killers from the 70s and 80s pretty easy.
Sure.
But like, I don't think anybody, and that was in the early 90s too, when you could list those off. Like, it isn't just something new.
Like the most recent one I can think of was the BTK.
Yeah, but he was from the 80s. He just basically got caught. Yeah, he got caught.
Okay.
It was like in the 90s, and I think he like went back to do it, or he sent like a story in or something, and I ended up getting him caught.
Huh. Bordella struck Bryson in the head, drugged him, bound him, and tortured him for days. One Saturday in April, after Bordella left to open his shop, Bryson found a match, and then he burned through his ropes and jumped from the second-story window.
Oh, God. Do you imagine how messed up that guy's got to be today?
Absolutely naked, except for a dog collar around his neck.
Well, and was it Jeffrey Dahmer? That he basically had a guy drugged that ran out.
Yes.
And ran to the cops.
Yes.
And Dahmer got out and grabbed him, and the cops were like, oh, bunch of gay drunk guys. Yeah, take your boyfriend back home, like gay guy.
Dahmer convinced the cops that, yeah, they were like having like a lover's quarrel.
Yeah.
And so they sent him back into the house. And as soon as the door closed, Dahmer strangled that guy. And honestly, that right there, that is why Dahmer went to prison instead of an institution.
Really? I didn't know that.
Because so I did this like 14-page research paper on serial killers and the insanity defense. And really the last like big name serial killer that you've heard of that was committed to a mental institution was the Boston Strangler. Or sorry, the Son of Sam killer, Berkowitz.
Okay, yeah. Because he's the one that said his dog was talking to him.
He's the one that said his dog was the Archangel Michael. Okay. All the other ones, the reason they went to prison is because even though they pleaded insanity, they took actions that basically a guilty person would do. They made efforts to cover up or, like hide from police.
So like there was actual thought and effort put into it.
Exactly. So the thing with the insanity defense is that you would commit the crime if the policeman was standing directly next to you. It's an impulse.
Yeah.
In the case of like Jeffrey Dahmer and, you know, stuff like that. So when Dahmer went out and was like, oh, we're just having a fight, like I'll bring him back inside. Like that was him lying to police. And then when he killed him, as soon as they were inside, that was him, you know, he killed him because he was afraid he'd run out again.
Yeah.
And then he'd get caught. It's that fear of getting caught is what is the reason that Dahmer went to prison and not to a mental hospital.
So if he would have killed him in front of the police, that'd been more of a stand up for that insanity plea.
Right.
Yeah, and he killed a lot more people after that too, didn't he?
Oh
like,
my!
Took a few years
yeah.
before he got caught. Yeah, my mom watched during the 90s, like the serial killer on like TBS or E or whatever channel it was. Like they had him on all the freaking time.
Oh, all those Dateline shows.
Yeah, my mom loved watching those. So you're sitting there like, "What's this about?" There's a clown.
And now they have that. Now they have that IDTV, which I just call like murder porn because that's basically what. That's what it seems to me. Same with the true crime podcast. I just feel like it's murder porn.
Pretty much, yeah.
So a meter reader spotted Chris and took him to a neighbor who called police. So you're a meter reader, Shawn, and you're walking down the street, and all of a sudden there's a naked dude that's all cut up and bruised up with a dog collar around his neck, like running towards you, like ah.
Whoa,
I don't know if I'd have
sit.
That's horrible. That is horrible. Police swarmed Berdella's house where they found the notebooks, photographs, syringes, other devices, along with 2 skulls, human teeth, and vertebrae. After determining that one man in the photographs was dead, the authorities dug up Berdella's backyard and found the other skull. Within 2 weeks of being indicted, Berdella pleaded guilty in hopes of avoiding the death penalty. More trouble arrived when a grand jury indicted him in Sheldon's death. This time, Berdella offered a full confession in return for a life sentence. To the dismay of the families of several victims who favor the death penalty, the prosecutor agreed. Over 3 days, Berdella told prosecutors the intricate tale of each of his victims. Then he headed to the state penitentiary in Jefferson City.
Ooh, so Jeff City, middle of the state.
Stoop's mother, one of the victims' mothers, won a $5 billion judgment against him for her son's wrongful death. It exceeded anything Berdella could pay, but it prevented him from keeping any money he might have made from his stories, such as writing a book.
I didn't think if you were arrested, you could write a book on your crime and profit from it.
I don't know. Well, you got to remember, though, this is like 89, so that might not have been true then.
Maybe. Yeah, because I think, OJ's was he was innocent, but he had the if I would have done it.
Yeah.
But,
oh, God.
But, I didn't know this. That book, the, what's the guy's name? Goldman? Right?
Yeah.
Their family owns the right to that book because basically OJ tried to
because they won like a civil suit, right?
They won the civil suit because Goldman's sister just did a really good podcast, kind of talking about the whole OJ trial and what she went through about it. And you talk about creepy, like just some of the interactions she had with OJ were just makes your skin kind of crawl. But she so they won the settlement, but OJ put the book like through his children or like in a roundabout way where it's like, well, it's not, I don't own the rights to it. It's my kids. But they were able to get a hold of the rights because of other lawsuits and whatnot. And when they released it, oh God, how'd they do it? It's basically, because it's called If I Did It.
Yeah.
And I think they changed it to
How I Didn't Get Caught.
Oh, yeah. So it's called If I Did It. But they changed that, so it's basically in the big bold, it says I did it, and then the word if is very, very small in the letter I.
Ah.
And the audiobook, I think it's actually it's the Goldman family that reads it.
Oh, wow. Ugh.
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
And you want to, like, you talk about creepy, like, you listen, they read some excerpts from that, and the way he goes into detail about the whole event, Like, just it makes your skin crawl.
Yeah,
it's
I don't like it.
I don't either.
In late summer or early autumn of 92, he wrote his mother in Ohio that he was feeling very, quote, and this is in quotes, he felt very yucky. On October 8th, 1992, Berdella began complaining of chest pains, and he died later that day. 4 years after going to prison. He was dead at 43.
Heart attack?
I believe so, yes. Local millionaire Del Dunmeyer bought most of Berdella's possessions, including his house, which he eventually demolished. His work began in late 93. A reporter asked a demolition worker what he thought would turn up. And the worker said, it's a strange feeling. You kind of wonder what you might find when you take a wall panel out. They didn't find anything.
Oh, okay. Well, that's like Gacy's house. Like, if you were the one trying to clean that up. Oh my god! Like, I heard stories about, like, he's the one that poured his own, like, sidewalk or own concrete driveway, and I think
he buried all his in the basement.
Well, I think
he killed 22 people. He buried 19 of them in the basement, and then threw the others off a bridge because he ran out of room in the basement. He would dump lye on the corpses to speed up decomposition.
Well, I thought I heard somewhere that the driveway he poured too, that he buried some in here. But here's a story, Richard, from June 5th of 2013. It's the ChicagoMag.com.
Okay.
It says, are John Wayne Gacy's victims buried at this building for sale in Norwood Park? And it says, neighbors and investigators have long suspected that boys' bodies are buried in the yard under the driveway.
I don't like it.
Yeah, because I thought I heard something about that. Maybe because I thought it was his driveway too, that they, like, at his house, they end up pulling it up and finding stuff years later.
I don't like it.
Well, Richard, this is a short tale I'll read to you. It's I won't even bury the read. I'll read it to you because it's kind of a weird crime. It's not about murder, but it's about potential murder. So it says, woman claims adopted girl she, quote, abandoned was really an adult dwarf who wanted to kill her. So this is off of Yahoo.
Oh, shit.
This was just recent news story, too. So a U.S. woman accused of abandoning her daughter has claimed the girl she adopted in 2010 was, in fact, an adult suffering from dwarfism who tried to kill the family. So she was adopted from the Ukraine, and they brought her over here. They moved to Canada in 2013, then brought her to the States. The family took care of Natalie's rent after they left the United States, yada, yada, yada. So she was 3 feet tall and had trouble walking. But the defense, they say, is very much echoing, spoiler alert, the movie The Orphan.
I never saw the movie.
I didn't either, but I heard the punchline was basically this, that the orphan was a dwarf that was trying to murder him. But the Barnetts had the girl's age legally changed from 8 to 22 in 2012, making her legal date of birth September 4th, 1989. So they said that she was hiding knives in the couch. She was talking about how she was going to kill family members, and she put chemicals in the coffee. She was jumping out of moving cars. She was smearing blood on the mirrors, and she was doing things you could never imagine a little child doing.
Damn.
She would stand over people in their sleep. She would.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's nope. Shawn,
does your kids do that?
So I was just gonna say, Shawn, I have 3 kids. And I remember when they were little, and like they'd come into your room and they'd stand next to the bed and they'd like talk all quiet. They'd be like, Dad. And you like, and it's like, it's so quiet that you like barely hear it, but it's enough to kind of rouse you awake. And you open your eyes and there you see like the kid's face, like staring at you. And you're like, Jesus, fuck. Oh, God.
Mom, Dad said a dirty word. Dad said, holy shit, whack. Tiffany was
It's not abuse if they're not a child anymore.
That's true. Get their age legally changed.
They're a little person. That way it's not abuse.
I was sleeping in my son's room, and Tiffany came home late one night because she wasn't home, so I just slept in there. And she came and she like lightly rubbed my arm, and it woke me and freaked me out. I turned around with my fist clenched, like, what the fuck? But then she hit me. She's like, don't you raise your hand at me. I'm like, ow.
Yeah. And then he woke up and he's like, ah. Yeah. You're like, ah, damn it.
She's like, I'm going to my room. You take care of this. I'm like, hey, we were.
Don't come back in here.
Well, I said it more like, don't come back in here. What'd you say? Nothing.
You'll repeat the cycle.
But it said she would stand over people in their sleep. She would be standing in the middle of the room and say, I'm waiting for the right time.
Oh, shit, no.
Yeah.
That's some Pet Cemetery bullshit right there.
Imagine if your son walked into the kitchen right now and looked at you and said, Dad, and you're like, what? I'm waiting for the right time. Well, the right time to clean up your shit is now. Go do it.
Yeah. No, Dad, the right time. And then he just takes a knife from the drawer and walks out.
Like,
what's with the Shawn, I'm staring at your house.
No, you're like, what's with the knife? Are we having cake?
Ooh, cake!
So the family is already known to the world through Jacob, a child prodigy. What the fuck does this come from?
Oh, Shawn, he got me. He promised me cake.
So this is saying, so it's not clear what happened to Natalie since she was left in Lafayette. So that's where they abandoned her. But the family is due in court later this month. And this article I said took place in September of this year. So relatively recent. So we'll stay tuned for that tale. But yeah, apparently adopted a dwarf, tried to kill everybody.
Damn.
So Richard, for what's up for your next tale? That's in my backyard.
So my next tale involves a man named Robin Burton Jr. He was also a drifter.
Oh. Is he of the my hometown Burtons?
He was a drifter who likely took an offer for a dry and warm shelter. His family says in good faith, not knowing it's where he would die in a gruesome murder. Earlier that day, Kyle W. Morgan met Burton at a train station, and the pair unsuccessfully tried to buy drugs.
Oh, drug deal gone bad?
Later, at Morgan's Woodstock apartment, the two were drinking beer and playing video games when Morgan struck Burton in the head with a hammer. Authorities found Burton's mutilated body in Morgan's apartment. Witnesses described the crime scene, saying Burton was stabbed 20 to 30 times.
Jeez.
Pieces of flesh were cut away from his body. Uno playing cards with the number 666 were placed on top of his chest, and a skull and crossbones die rested on his temple. Natural Born Killers was in the DVD player.
Well, this sounds like it's creepy.
The phrase, "It is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven," was written in blood on the walls.
I don't like it.
And okay, so Shawn, you were saying like, oh, this stuff happens in the 80s. You know, this is dated 2009.
Wow, I didn't hear about this one. Well, is this a murder or just is it a serial killer? Because it seems like the serial killer is what I was kind of referencing.
Yeah. I'll keep going. A judge sentenced Morgan to 30 years in prison. He previously pleaded guilty but mentally ill to first-degree murder for the death of Burton. Morgan could have been sentenced to 20 to 36 years between attorneys. Shortly after Burton's death, the Northwest Herald uncovered a social media page in which Morgan called himself Thrill Kill Kyle. It was in this. Okay, here's going back, Shawn. In his MySpace profile.
Oh, wow.
The MySpace profile displayed his fascination with the macabre, true crimes, and drinking blood.
Oh, do you think he was a vampire?
At Morgan's apartment, authorities collected bizarre and disturbing poetry, writing, and photographs. They found fan letters Morgan wrote to Dennis Rader and Richard Ramirez, both noted serial killers.
So were they still in jail, I guess, that he was sending it to?
Yeah, probably.
God, that's the other creepy thing, like the fangirls and fanboys of serial killers.
Yeah.
That stuff.
Yeah. Morgan had a history of drug and alcohol abuse that dated back to early adolescence, but a change in medication was chiefly to blame for his actions that day, according to his defense attorney.
Oh, so they mixed up his meds and that kind of
that's what the defense is saying. They're saying his meds were messed up. Morgan's family admitted him in numerous treatment facilities all over the country. He would appear rehabilitated before relapsing. Then this is according to his father. There were attempts to have Morgan involuntarily committed, but a judge rejected it because he hadn't harmed anyone. A doctor later prescribed an amphetamine that increases dopamine levels in the brain. Morgan was taking this when Burton was murdered. Howard called the drug poison. Howard is a forensic psychiatrist. Howard called the drug poison and particularly dangerous for those with a bipolar diagnosis. By increasing dopamine levels, the drug can exacerbate psychosis and cause those with bipolar disorder to become increasingly irritable or prone to violent outbursts. A second forensic psychiatrist, Dr. James Kavanaugh, described Morgan's mental illness and substance abuse, dark thoughts, and morbid obsessions as lighter fluid, and the drug was the match.
So yeah, bad combination of stuff.
Yeah. As the courtroom cleared, the Burton and Morgan families hugged, declaring that there were no winners. I just hope the sentence he was given will get him some help. Burton's uncle, Rick Johnson, said, I feel bad for the Morgan family as well.
Oh, that's fair. Like, sorry, my nephew killed your son.
Yeah. Fucked up.
Well, Richard, I will share the last tale I have. I've got some quotes from basically unsettling quotes from serial killers that we can maybe finish up on. But let me share you this timeline from
for the record, that apparently all that happened at 2284 Bernard Way.
Wait, south or north?
North.
Oh, that's next door.
Oh.
How bizarre. How bizarre.
God damn it.
So, Richard, this is a tale of one Abraham Shakespeare. So this is a tale of, you hear
the guy's name is Shakespeare?
Yeah, Abraham, too. Okay. Abraham Shakespeare.
That's awesome. Good name.
So you think you're like, oh my gosh, I've got a great historical first name. I've got a great historical last name. What could go wrong in my life? Well, Richard, on November 15th, 2006, Shakespeare's coworker, Michael Ford, another good last name, buys 2 lottery tickets, including the winning ticket at Shakespeare's request. So basically, Shakespeare's like, hey, Mike, you're going to the store, buy me 2 lottery tickets, one of which is a winner. So he wins and takes the lump sum at, I think it was $17 million. So he wins the lottery. Oh,
shit.
He says, I would like, this takes place in Florida. He says, I will take the lump sum of
Oh, God, not Florida.
$17 million. So Shakespeare in January of 2007 buys a $1.1 million home in a gated community. In April of 2007, Michael Ford sues Shakespeare's for allegedly stealing the winning ticket from him.
Oh.
So it's like, okay, Ford, like, let's be a dick about it. Which, I mean, honestly, like, I guess it'll be on record, but like, if you bought a lottery ticket for me, or if I bought a lottery ticket for you and it was the winner, it was like 17 million, I think it'd be like, hey, you kind of deserve a cut. Not like half, but at least a good amount that you're like, hey, guess what?
They always say, like, if you do find a winning ticket, the first thing you should do somewhere on the ticket, preferably on the back, but somewhere on the ticket, you should sign your name.
Yep, I've always heard that too. It's because even I've heard if like you want multiple people on the ticket, all of them sign their name. So it's basically like it's the ownership of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's legal or not, but that's what I've heard too. In October of 2007, a jury takes only a little over an hour to rule that Shakespeare did not steal the ticket. In October 28, D.D. Moore arranges to meet Shakespeare, purportedly to write a book about him.
Oh.
In January 9th of 2009, the ownership of Shakespeare Home is transferred to American Medical Professionals Moore's Company. That was the D.D. Moore we talked about. So 2009, according to Polk County records, Shakespeare's home and other properties are sold or assigned to the American Medical Professionals, which was $570,000 owed to Shakespeare's. More than 2/3 is owed by American Medical Professionals. So it's like he owes a little over $500,000, and the other 2/3 is owned by that.
Okay.
In February of 2009, Dee Moore, who we talked about, buys a 2008 Chevy Corvette for her boyfriend for $70,000. That's the whole creepy thing out of this, Richard, is there's a car out there, a Corvette, that's $70,000. That's a house. That's like a small house.
That's true. That's true. Although, to be fair, you can buy the Batmobile for like $250,000.
That's better money paid.
I agree.
She paid.
I guess I'm just saying by comparison.
Yeah. She paid with a cashier's check from her company in March of 2009. So this is about 2 years, almost 3 years after he won the lottery. Moore buys a 2009 Hummer for $90,000. In April of 2009. Yeah, she's buying a lot of cars. In April of 2009, Shakespeare is last seen in the Lakeland area. April 6th, according to detectives, this is the last day Shakespeare used his cell phone. So in April of 2009, Dee Moore calls James Moore, her ex-husband, asking him to dig a hole in her yard. Dee claims the hole
Could you dig a hole, please? Why?
No
about
reason.
6 foot deep. Could you? That was about 6 feet. You know, like about 6 by 2, about 6 by 2 by 6.
I mean, let's just
let's just say grave size. Could you dig me a grave size hole for what? Meat.
So she claims the hole is needed to bury concrete and trash. So James Moore obviously is like, oh yeah, I'll fill up your backyard. Comes over and digs a hole and is called back 2 hours later to fill the hole. James Moore, who is being paid to do other yard work by Dee, claims he filled the hole but could not see what was in it as it was dark. So in August of 2009, a gentleman named Cedric...
Why would you call your gardener to fucking do your... digging the hole is one thing. Like, you could... It'd be hard doing, but explaining it, but you could possibly... There's a chance you could explain that away.
Well, when you look... like, she says for concrete and trash, when you come back and you look like, I don't see any concrete or trash in there. She's like, whack! Thump. Damn it.
I'm going to run out of gardeners at this rate.
I'll have to dig another hole. So in August of 2009, Cedric Edom, who is Shakespeare's cousin, delivers a card with $100 and a cross enclosed to Elizabeth Walker, Shakespeare's mother. Walker claimed the signature on the card looked like Shakespeare's, but Edom did not say who gave him the card.
Okay.
In November of 2009, his cousin files a missing report on Shakespeare's with the sheriff's office. A few days later, November 12th, and possibly the first police interview conducted with Dee Moore, detectives tried to learn how Moore appropriated Shakespeare's assets. Moore tells investigators she paid Shakespeare in cash. November 24th, in another interview with detectives, Moore claims the reason Shakespeare was taken off of the Abraham Shakespeare LLC account was that he did not want to pay taxes. She also cannot give a reason for why approximately $1 million was used to open the account was withdrawn days after Shakespeare's name was removed.
Oh, shit.
That same day...
You're just a bad criminal at this point.
Yeah. At that same day, Polk County Sheriff's Office declares Shakespeare missing. December 3rd of 2009, in an interview with detectives, Moore claims that the reason that some of Shakespeare's assets went into Moore's business account was because Shakespeare did not want to pay child support. So she's like kind of throwing all the blame at him. It's like, he was a terrible dad. He was a terrible husband. He was a terrible lay. What, did you have sex with him? Well, no, I just heard about it.
Yeah.
Hey,
somebody told me.
Do you guys know how to dig holes?
Who told you? The gardener. What gardener? Whack.
Moore, who was in December of 2009, Moore posing as Shakespeare, writes to his mother saying he is fine, even though Shakespeare could not read or write. So this guy wins money, can't read or write, and she writes for him. In December, Moore sells her 10-month-old Hummer to a friend of an owner of a Chevy dealer for $49,000. So she bought it for like $90,000, sells it for $49,000.
Yeah, and she's selling it for like less than half, or a little more than half. Not much more.
At the end of December of 2009, Elizabeth Walker, Shakespeare's mother, receives a phone call from someone pretending to be Shakespeare while she's eating out with Dee Dee Moore. December 28th, Gregor Smith, one of Shakespeare's friends, is paid by Moore to make calls to Shakespeare's mother pretending to be her son.
Oh, my God.
Smith is approached and interviewed by detectives and decides to start cooperating with the police. So, January 2010, Moore contacts...
I feel like you're already, you're just so bad at this. You're already cooperating with police.
Well, I'm trying to figure out why it takes another 6 months where it's basically like she's admitted to this in a roundabout way by being a terrible criminal. They're like, all right, we got to get more evidence.
Yeah, right?
So, Dee Dee Moore contacts Gregor Smith and asks him if he knew anyone who would be willing to admit to law enforcement that they were responsible for the killing of Shakespeare. So, basically, she's trying to be like, hey, will you take
Could you
half
say
the
you
blame?
did it?
Officer Mike Smith of the Lake Wells, Florida Police Department, working undercover, is introduced to Dee Dee Moore by Gregor Smith. Moore agrees to pay Smith $50,000 if he claims responsibility for Shakespeare's death.
Wow.
Smith agrees, but tells Moore he needs to know where Shakespeare is buried. January 25th, Dee Dee Moore shows Gregor Smith the concrete slab under which Shakespeare is buried. Moore also gives Gregor Smith the .38 Smith & Wesson revolver she used to kill Shakespeare.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. In an interview with Detective, Moore claims the reason she did not pay Shakespeare for his house was because he had a drug problem and the money would be used for drugs. So she's like, wait, I would give him money, but he just used it for drugs, so I just killed him.
Yeah, because that way, hey, no drugs.
Police find a body at the Plaint City house a day after digging at the site. James Moore, Dee Dee Moore's ex-husband, is interviewed by the detectives and makes the claim about digging and filling a hole in April. On the 29th of January in 2010, the body found at Plant City is identified as Shakespeare. Police take Dee Dee Moore to custody. Moore is charged with accessory after the fact. The judge sets the bond at $1 million. And February 19th, Dee Dee Moore is charged with first-degree murder. And March 15th, she pleads not guilty. And then in December 10th of 2012, so almost 3 years later, she's finally found guilty and sentenced to life without parole.
See, at that point, I feel like if you're just that bad a criminal, I would just piss away every single red cent I had.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, the problem is she obviously didn't think she was going to get caught. I mean, you've basically it's like, hey, if Florida, I think is a what do they call it when they have the death sentence?
The death penalty?
Yeah, they have the death penalty.
Okay.
But it's like, hey, I'll give you $50,000 if you admit to this murder and basically go on death row. Like, what's that $50K going to do for me at this point?
Yeah, exactly.
Weird. But that's my last story.
See, what I would do, I would have taken been like, okay, give me the $50,000. And then I would have taken the $50,000. I would have spent it all. And then I would have come back and been like, I'm going to need another $50,000.
She probably would have fell for it.
You know what I mean? You just come back and be like, well, now that I know everything, now you just keep paying me.
Yeah. Well, he was an undercover cop, though. But he's like, I need more time.
I'm about ready to crack this case wide open, Sarge. I promise. You want to go for a ride in my Hummer?
That's my last tale, Richard. I got some quotes I think we can finish on, but do you have another story?
No, that was it. That was all I had. I figured I'd only have time for 2.
Okay. Well, these are quick kind of quotes, but they just kind of leave some chills going down your spine. So these are 15 unsettling serial killer confessions that'll literally send chills down your spine. And this is from BuzzFeed. Okay. This article was from February 7th of 2019, so pretty recent. So the first one by Ted Bundy, which if you've seen any of the Netflix Ted Bundy stuff, it's fucking creepy.
Yeah, I avoid it.
He said, we, and in quotes it says serial killers because he didn't actually say it, but that's what they're inferring. He says, we are your sons, we are your husbands, and we grew up in regular families. And this dude, he went cross country with all of his stuff. It is creepy.
Yeah.
Number 2 comes from the Golden State Killer. He says, you'll be silent forever, and I'll be gone in the dark. And this is the guy.
That's fun.
I looked at, I think he was big in the 74 to 86. He was doing a lot of his stuff and then kind of went off the radar. And he got caught later in life.
Yeah. Actually, it was Patton Oswalt's wife was a reporter, and she wrote a book on the Golden State Killer, and the evidence she uncovered while researching the book is what led them to catch the actual killer.
Cool. That's good.
It was it was kind of bittersweet because right before the book got published, she lost a battle with cancer. So
number 3 comes from a guy named Albert Fish. I didn't know much about him, but apparently this was in the early 20s, and he basically was a cannibal.
Yes.
And I think he ate kids, the way this says, but
yeah, that's the way. I was like, oh, let me read more about this. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I won't read this one because it's basically just talks about how he.
I love your face. I love this like sad face you have on right now.
Yeah, I mean they got a picture of him too, and just. So the number 4 is Richard Konkliski. He was an assassin known as the Iceman. And he said it was a man, and he was begging and pleading and praying, I guess. And he was, please, God, and all over the place. So I told him he could have a half an hour to pray to God. And if God could come down and change the circumstance, he'd have that time. How fucked up is that?
Yeah. And then he said, Maverick.
Yeah. But he says, he was speaking about it, he said, but God never showed up. And that's one thing I shouldn't have done that one. So I guess he felt bad about that one. Number 5, Lawrence Singleton killed a bunch of women. He said, if it's the last thing I'll do, I'll finish the job. Hooray.
Yeah, he's a closer.
Yeah. Jeffrey Dahmer. He said, I had a box in my bedroom closet, and it contained the mummified head and genitals of a young man I met in one of the bars down in Milwaukee.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Like you do.
Mary Bell, this was a story I was going to tell. She was a 10-year-old that was a serial killer. She killed like some kids. And she's it's just a cute picture of a kid, right? And she is quoted as saying, I like hurting people. Oh,
lovely. End this, Shawn. No more.
Well, we've got H.H. Holmes. We're about halfway there.
Oh my God.
We've got H.H. Holmes, Richard, famous for the Kill House in Chicago during the World Fair.
Yes. Yeah.
He is quoted as saying, I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing.
Yeah, it's not his fault.
Let's see if I find more famous. Oh, here's one. It's Alien Wuornos. She was the first female serial killer, I think. Okay. That was that movie with Richie, not Nicole Richie. What's the girl from? Oh fuck! You know the one. What's the chick from? Fuck, Richard. Why don't you know this? Give me a second.
You're saying half sentences. I don't know what you're doing.
I'm trying to remember what that movie is.
I don't understand.
Oh, it's have you seen the movie Monster?
Oh, the one with Charlize Theron?
Charlize Theron, yeah. That's her. This is the woman.
Oh, okay.
Which is an awkward movie to watch with your girlfriend's parents in high school.
I could see that. Yeah. I could see that.
She's quoted here saying, I want the world to know I killed these men as cold as ice. I've hated humans for a long time. I am a serial killer.
That's fun.
Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who you mentioned earlier. Yeah. He said, big deal. Death comes with the territory. See you in Disneyland.
Oh, I wanted to go to Disneyland.
Not anymore. The killer clown, John Wayne Gacy. He said, I don't believe in hitting children. I don't believe in spoiling a child either.
I don't like it. End it. End this.
All right, that's good enough. John Wayne Gacy's Will and Dawn. But yeah, creepy. Think about that, Richard. These people exist. So
I think
why don't you give us Richard's closing thoughts as you wanted to do this creepy episode, and you were the one that
this. No. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Closing thought is don't run out of gas. Don't become a drifter. and basically, like, you know, just have a general distrust for society.
Yeah, pretty much anybody, really.
Stay away from MySpace.
It's not really a MySpace anymore. It's more like a news site.
I don't even know what happened to MySpace.
I went there, and this guy named Bob, who's like 3 houses up from me, friended me. I'm supposed to go there after the show.
Hey, cocktail party.
All right, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website, we're at languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. Like us on Facebook. Go out and get a little bit of LOB merchandise at our TeePublic store by searching Language of Bromance. And if you want to throw a little bit of money in our Patreon drawer, go to our Patreon account. It's www.patreon.com/languageofbromance. And we are also on the crime-fighting True Crime Network, the Pod Bros Network.
The safe haven for podcast drifters everywhere.
Yeah. Well, Richard, anything before I close her out?
No. Just let's hurry and end this.
All right.
I
Make
need
sure
a
we
shower.
check our gas tanks. All right. Well, that's all the roads we have this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And don't be a why. Be a why not.
Unless you want to kill and torture people, then
don't do that.
Definitely ask yourself why.
Yeah. And if the dog says, because I said so, get a new dog.
Right? Why didn't he just do that? Just be like, you know what? Like, I don't like you bossing me, dog.
You know what, Poodles? You're a real asshole.
You could be a real shit.
Sue.